Is this thing working? Check. Check. Fake truth. It's everywhere. Here on this channel.
All right, let's be serious. Let's be serious. Is anybody out there? Good evening. Good afternoon. It's good to see you. It's good to hear from you, man. It's been a while, you know. It's good to just know that you're doing all right and just making it through, you know, the best you can. So I really appreciate you reaching out, you know, because it's just not, it's not really the norm anymore, you know, to have somebody actually just reach out and ask you how you're doing, right? Because I guess most people are too caught up and absorbed in whatever they're going through to honestly actually worry about what you're going through. And that definitely helps drive us apart. Hyper effective. Now I'm talking like hypothetical, right? Because I didn't don't actually see any messages. Not exactly interacting with anybody quite yet. But I you know, you create your own reality. I'm realizing that more and more. And so if you can put out there that I don't know, you're a caring person in general, and you just support humans in a non-offensive sort of a supportive way, then maybe that'll come back. Maybe it'll come back to me, come back to you. At least that's the hope. Now, you know, this is going to be a little all over the place, and I am starting pretty early for some of you, but I realized, right, you got to sort of set yourself up for success. If I make a plan to do the stream like minutes before I'm supposed to be asleep, then there's a good chance, you know, some things might happen. I might fall asleep before the stream starts accidentally, and wake up with all the lights on at like 3-4 in the morning, looking, just feeling very bewildered. You know, that's a possibility. I could also do the show and just be super fucking out of it, and just in general be talking kind of slow and not making a ton of valid points. So, right, in that whole, you know, theory idea of reaching out and helping your other fellow men, women, entities, right? It goes both ways. It's almost like you got to reach out to yourself and be like, bro.
It's okay. You can chill out. You can just take care of yourself. Don't always just be running yourself ragged, because that's sort of the point. That's what they want you to be doing. Because if you're stuck in that low frequency, then, well, you're gonna spend more money than you need to, and you're gonna be generally unhappy and not connecting with other humans.
So, right, you gotta try to avoid that as best as possible. Although, right, the best laid plans, that's always part of the story. Now, I wanted to bring you this image of this just basically pretty ugly church here we got going. Right, because I was listening to I never know how to say his name. The one of the top mud flooders out there. That Russian guy, Druzkin, Druzels, Druz. You know, he's like a mud flood expert. But he was walking around in his neighborhood and taking some pictures of stuff, and was talking about how, right, back then, and this is probably what you would do, all the buildings got smashed and broken, and then after that cataclysm, it sort of seems like it became this mix and match. You maybe fixed up some stuff, built new sections, and also combined like two or three or more buildings together, right? If you had some nice archways or molding or something, you could take it out of the extra broken building and build that into your less broken building, and then you would have one not broken building when you had multiple broken buildings in the front, right? So again, I just was passing by. I can't really speak to the history or tell you exactly what went down here. Right, but what we see is this church that is made out of this brick in obviously a pretty advanced style, right? And anytime we see these sort of copper roofs with these archways, right? This is definitely like advanced culture that's being that was created here. This is definitely like the work of a master, right? But then you look over here and we see this just poured concrete. And this seems like something that they would probably have done after World War II, if this entire side was just sort of rocked to the ground. And I guess you would have to rebuild the whole roof and rebuild a whole bunch of other stuff, right? But the point I guess I want to make is that it's definitely standing there, and it's blatantly obvious this building is from multiple time periods, right? There's no way you would actually lay all this beautiful brickwork and beautiful corners and edges and everything, and then come and pour this concrete on it with these dots in here, right? That it's just aesthetically displeasing, I would say. Something to avoid in planning, but something you might do in a catastrophe or in a disaster, right? Which sort of brings me to this other building that I was looking at, right? Because now I've sort of become pretty interested in this idea of right, the not the two-dimensional history of, right, we built it and then it stood there and right, it was dedicated, but what, like the actual living history of some of these buildings, which again, I'm sure the actual story is much more fascinating than anything we're being led to believe. But at the same time, right, you can take stuff from your own personal experience or observations, and then possibly that'll help you to extrapolate what is actually going on. So I just thought this house was fascinating because it's obviously like falling apart, has some sort of structural damage to it, and they seem to have basically gutted it from the outside in. It's almost like they tore down all the walls, and while they're doing that, built this sort of supporting structure, right? On the outside, you have these beams basically holding the whole house up. And I guess it's really, it must not be damaged or far enough along for them to completely scrap the house and start over, right? Again, it is something worth salvaging. And then comes the discussion of how you would do that, how you would stabilize it, and how you would combine the building materials skill set. Basically the how you would mix that culture of your time with the time of that it was built in, right? Or if it's a really old building, something that's been through multiple catastrophes, how you would continue to rebuild and add on and maybe make worse and uglier as time went by. Yeah, just something to think about. I got my keyboard. Wait, it's in a super low octave. I feel like I changed that instrument, but we're just gonna move on. We're just gonna move on from there. I don't know if you managed to catch that fascinating speech that the president just gave from the White House. I was refreshing my YouTube homepage, as I'm often been known to do, looking for new cool videos to watch, and all of a sudden my make recommended feed was just flooded with coverage from the speech, right? That the president was going to make a speech about Soleimani and Iran and everything that's going on, and it was like, right? They started the live feed, but he didn't actually come on and start speaking until like 40 minutes after the live stream had started, which I thought was also pretty fascinating. Just sort of building up the suspense, building it until he actually did come on, and it really was just sort of a generic, we fucked up that terrorist kind of speech. I guess nothing too surprising. I guess you shouldn't be surprised by the tone or the energy behind anything official like that's getting announced at the front of the White House, right? But just to hit that refresh on my feed, here it is. Here it is. Already probably hundreds and thousands of articles talking about this new speech that the president was making, and I guess there are some sort of new issues, new info that he was talking about, but mostly what it was about was how awesome the troops are, how we absolutely dominated Soleimani, and for that measure, ISIS and al-Baghdadi and the rest of those people, and how everything's just going perfect, absolutely crushing it. And I guess I am. It's hard to know for certain where anything is headed these days. I mean, maybe this will all fizzle out, and they'll give him heavier sanctions, and it'll just sort of drop back into the same malaise that we have been going on in the Middle East for the last 20 years or so. Or maybe there will be more provocation, right? But he's saying that Iran appears to be standing down, so I don't know. I'll see it when I believe it, but for now, I guess that's the name of the day. Things seem to be changing very quickly on this front, right? One morning it seems like there's nothing going on, and the next morning it seems like there's rockets being shot, and just in general, just general madness. Oh, what's up? We got Madame Mystic Skywatcher in the house. I always wondered, Madame Mystic Skywatcher, whether you say Madame Mystic. Oh, is it Madam? Like Madam? Like as in a Madam? Or not like AM radio? I think I finally get it now that I said the words out loud. Madame Mystic. I like it. It's good. It's a good name. Good to see you too, dude. Or madam, whatever title you prefer to go by. Now, right, because that was the other thing that worked into this equation, that somehow this Canadian plane, or not Canadian, it was your Ukrainian plane, took off from Iran and was instantly just decimated, shot down, and exploded. And whenever you're just rocketing civilians, that it just doesn't set a good tone. It's not a good look when hundreds of civilians are getting burnt up in the fire. That's right, in general, just a sort of a ritual sacrifice sort of vibe to it. Maybe this is sort of right, the sacrifice that gets this whole thing started. Oh man, looks like we got Snafu Snaps in the house. Another legend of the YouTube space. What's up, Snafu, man? I know, I'm always all over the place, but it's always good to see your chats, dude. You're the man. And same to you, Grant Harper. Got some core fans out here. I really appreciate your guys' support, especially when I am doing things like sleeping in and just in general being a little chaotic, right? But everything on this feed is going to be Iran related. So I just wanted to jump over real quick. Right, yeah, it was 170. It's a decent amount. And as with everything, I have become so obsessed with these numbers that 170 were killed. Right, 1 plus 7 is 8, reduces to 8. That would give you that infinity feeling, right? 8 is always representing sort of the infinite. Right, but Iran's Red Crescent has said there's no chance of finding survivors. Everybody is owned. And this really hits home, I guess, because a lot of people have actually ridden or flown on a plane and can imagine that feeling. Or at least have seen some sort of entertainment or television that shows a plane blowing up. So they know, they feel that. They feel that viscerally. They can feel it. They can feel that. Now I'm just gonna run through these with you guys because that's just the vibe. Noam Chomsky says the U.S. is a rogue state, and Soleimani's assassination confirms it. Right, and I'm not gonna say I'm really an expert on any of this foreign policy stuff. I have been watching some expert foreign policy. I just discovered recently the what's his name, the local vagabond. What's he called? The vagabond. What kind of vagabond is he? Man, I'm totally blanking. What is this vagabond? What is his name? The Last American. See, it was worth it. It was totally worth it, guys. The Last American Vagabond. I would definitely go check out some of his content because he's one of those like warrior types, and I guess you can see he is surging a little bit during this Iraq thing because he's really doing his research. Right, he does these long live streams where he has just been, trawling the newswire and everything in between for the most accurate information, and will often come up with an angle or an idea that I don't hear anywhere else on YouTube or especially in the mainstream. So, right, if you really want to get a feel for what's going on, right, in the detail level of what kind of rockets are being shot and who's shooting them and flight manifests and all that sort of like extra hardcore info, I would definitely point you towards The Last Vagabond. So, I'm in no way associated with The Last Vagabond, Last American Vagabond, but you should still go check it out, dog. Right, and this is, if you don't know Noam Chomsky, then you should definitely also check out Mr. Noam Chomsky, probably one of the smartest dudes that ever said words out loud. He has just a very clear view on foreign policy and everything that's happening in the world. So, right, when he calls America a rogue state, some basically somebody that is on this terrorist level of just all out insanity, I would have to agree. It seems to be the case. Right, let's just read this real quick, because I guess this is from an interview, right? And does the assassination of Soleimani constitute an act of war? Act of war? Perhaps we can settle on reckless international terrorism. It seems that Trump's decision on a whim appalled high Pentagon officials who briefed him on options on pragmatic grounds. If we wish to look beyond, we might ask how we would react in comparable circumstances. Suppose that Iran were to murder the second highest U.S. official, its top general in the Mexico City International Airport, along with the commander of a large part of the U.S.-supported army of an allied nation. Would that be an act of war? Others can decide. It is enough for us to recognize that the analogy is fair enough and that the pretext put forth by Washington collapsed so quickly on examination that it would be embarrassing to run through them. Damn! Snap!
Wrecked Donald Trump.
I mean, Noam Chomsky, he just knows how to lay it out there, and that's something I haven't heard other people making the point. Although, obviously makes a lot of sense. If the tables were turned, if Khan came over here, and I don't know who's a general, Petraeus, I guess he's out, more kid stuff. But if Petraeus was still general and he was chilling in Mexico, and Iran just came and straight up drone striked him and was like, bro, sorry, but you guys are shady. And you deserved it. And if you try to hit us back, then we're going to retaliate with eternal fire. It's I guess a little hard to imagine, but right, I could see America being pretty pissed off if something like that went down. If a high level named person was assassinated at an international airport that was neither of those two countries, right? There's a third party in here, which I think is being sort of obfuscated and really not mentioned enough, right? These were Iranian people that were getting rocket attacked by us, but not in Iran. They were right? This is in a different country. Obviously a place that we have fully dominated and have been basically living in for the last 20 years. But at the same time, you shouldn't be killing important figures on foreign soil, just in general. I mean, unless you want to start a war. So, which makes it seem like, go back and forth. All of this is on purpose. It really is just, there's no one at the wheel and it's pure insanity. Right, to read the way Noam Chomsky puts it, it makes him seem like, right, Trump is really just going off the cuff. He just was like, no, let's cap these fools, and the Pentagon guys were like, but Mr. President, that's a super bad idea. Don't do that. And he was like, lol, suck it, and they just drone striked him. So right, I could sort of picture both going down. Either Trump didn't know anything that was going to happen, or he was fully in his faculties and knew exactly what he was doing when it happened. And this ties in, I mean, it all really ties together because all of these events, these news articles, whether it happens to you or whether you just read it, it all just sort of conflates and combines into your reality, right? I guess if we really break it down, that's all we're really doing here is you live your life, you have your experiences, and then you add to that, right, the experiences of your others and loved ones and things people have told you, and then basically this media information. And a lot of times what's going on here, what's written here on your screen can have a much more stronger, powerful emotional impact than you can even on yourself, right? Depending on how hardcore you are, how deep in you are to the media, what your diet is like, basically. Because things can get exacerbated here too, right? If you really are one of those MSNBC types and have just been constantly choking down outrage content, then right, there's a good chance that your emotional sort of flow up and down is like somehow altered. Not even somehow, just deeply altered. I strongly believe that whatever media or things you're having pass in front of your eyeballs, it's not just gonna change your intellectual state. It's gonna change like the very basic building blocks of your personality. And obviously these guys know that. That's otherwise they wouldn't be spending so much time and energy on media. And also why they must be super fucking pissed that nobody cares about the mainstream anymore. Which is going to lead us into the Ricky Gervais thing. So I want to get to that as soon as possible. But let's just take a quick look here. A 6.4 magnitude earthquake struck Puerto Rico before dawn on Tuesday. It was followed by 3 hours later by an aftershock measuring 6.0, almost as much. They were the largest in a series of quakes that have struck the U.S. territory in recent days and caused heavy damages in some areas. Right, so Puerto Rico obviously didn't have a great year last year. Was that last year when they got totally wrecked? I think so. And now they seem to be getting wrecked yet again. Right, and it seems like it could have been worse, right? Only 8 people injured near the epicenter. But obviously some more damage there. And right, it just all sort of lines up. Obviously they don't want people living out there anymore. They're gonna want to shut down anything as remote as something like Puerto Rico and have it be completely cut off from human contact. And what's going on in Australia and around the world, I mean, if you are trying to tell me any different, I'd love to see some examples of right, the opposite of people correctly and settling land in places they haven't been yet and developing that land for sustainable use. Right, you don't normally hear that story. You normally hear stories like this where there was a huge disaster, lots of pain and suffering, and then a lot of people losing their living situations, right? Having to move either completely out of the country or at least to a bigger city where they can, where it's easier to control them, basically, because that just seems where everything's headed. That's what's going on here on YouTube. That's what's going on out in the real world. Everything, it just seems like we're in that vice, right? And every day it just gets, they put another turn on it, right? It just gets squeezed a tiny bit tighter, and they're doing it pretty slowly. So, right, there's no sort of rioting, or I guess there is a very deep frustration about what's going on here. But right with an earthquake, we've been taught that there's nobody to blame for that. There's nothing anybody could have done. It just happens, right? Just like forest fires, just like flooding, just like all those things, right? These are acts of God, as they say. Right, but people here in the conspiracy community know that may not be the case, that some of these large-scale events are, in fact, actually pretty easy to control and manipulate. Now, in some lighter news, this, I mean, I definitely saved this article, and I'm almost regretting it now because it is super fucking weird and doesn't really make a whole lot of a sense. But here we go anyways. Man wakes up to find burglar sucking his toes. Authorities in Florida are reportedly looking for a man suspected of breaking into another man's home and sucking on his toes as he slept. The victim awoke on Christmas Eve to find the burglar at the foot of his bed in his home in this random city, according to this random news station. The sheriff said the suspect declared he was there to, quote, to suck toes, when 20-year-old victim told he did not have any money. Right? So he went there specifically with the point of sucking toes. Although, right, we get to this next part. It's never just about sucking toes. That's sort of the moral of the story. Officer said the intruder reportedly attempted to grab the victim's groin, and an altercation ensued between the two men before the suspect fled. Right? I think if he had just left it at sucking toes, he could have got away with this, right? And then we wouldn't even be reading this news story. But, right, you always got to look for more. You always got to be just reaching for that groin. And, yeah, pretty ridiculous. But still relevant is what I'm trying to say, right? Even in something this ridiculous, and this really is recent news, right? This is from a day ago, and this was read about, researched, approved by the editor, and pushed out by the Independent as newsworthy information. Right? Even though there was no arrests, these toes seem to be sort of following us around the page, right? I'll never look at this stock photo the same way. But even a weird ass story like this is going to get in your mind and affect your psyche and inform your decisions, right? On a daily level. And I guess one major point coming out of this article would be this feeling that, like, yeah, there are fucking weirdos everywhere, and I don't want to talk to anybody. I'm just going to go back home and watch Netflix and lock my doors because there's dudes sucking toes out there, right? Just absolute weirdos. And this has like a chilling effect, which I don't think it's so good, actually, because it again, it's the same effect. It pushes us apart from each other. It makes you distrust. It makes you think that, well, I don't want to invite that guy over because he could be a toe sucker, He could be just looking to, he could just be waiting till I fall asleep so he can get in here and suck my toes, right? Maybe give me a little roofie so I don't wake up during it. Maybe, right? And then you start to just distrust everybody and not go out, right? You're not gonna get a drink. You're not gonna just randomly meet some strangers on the street or anywhere because, right, that too could be.
Toe sucker, he's gonna suck my toes. I know he wants to do it now. If my shoes were off, he'd be eyeing me.
All right. So yeah, it went possibly a little too hard on the toe sucking article because, geez, it's already half an hour. Time really does fly. But here's the thing. I really want to get into since as usual I titled the video something, and then I definitely want to talk about that thing. And I also see it as pretty relevant to everything that's going on here. So I'm going to break my rule and move the playhead here, and just see if we can get back to my internet feed. Let's get back to the internet feed. Oh, get this toe out of here, though. I'm sick of the toes. It's really not my style, anyways. Get out of here. But I was listening to this the other day, and don't worry, there's not going to be any. There's no images here, but right, obviously nobody actually watched the Golden Globes. People may watch something like the Academy Awards, right? Maybe, but the Golden Globes are definitely super not important. And Well, no, just that's sort of the point. Nobody actually cares about the mainstream anymore, which is why they have to do so much information filtering and suppression, because a stupid, dumbass YouTube channel just like myself can possibly, right, get in people's heads and maybe change their minds and make them think a different way, and possibly attract more viewers than your average network television show that they spent millions of dollars on. And that. I mean, obviously, I see it from their perspective. It's a huge problem. They gotta try to fix that. I gotta try to do something about that. But they can't. And that almost seems to be the point, right? I sort of have this theory. It's not really a finished theory quite yet, but I have this theory that there's like a full-on controlled demolition going down, just front to back, wholesale, the entire planet, right? They are burning Australia, like legit ruining it for the next couple thousand years by right, not doing the logging, controlling stuff right, and then letting all the water run off. And man, I was watching a bunch of stuff about that too, that the topsoil is just because the floods are going to come pretty soon after all of these brush fires, and then they're going to lose all of their topsoil, and it will become extremely difficult to grow anything in Australia in the coming years. And right, again, we even in America get a lot of our beef and other sort of produce and stuff from Australia. They're a huge agricultural producer, but if you look at those images, that place is getting absolutely wrecked. And right, again, every time I seem like I'm going on a tangent, I bring it back. Well, maybe not every time. Sometimes. So, here we are at the Golden Globes. Nobody's watching the Golden Globes. Nobody actually cares about NBC or what they say or do anymore. And here comes Ricky Gervais, right? He just comes and does his pre-show monologue or whatever, which in hindsight usually does get a decent amount of buzz if it's in any way controversial. But this I see as a pretty hard exception, right? Apparently on the live stream on NBC, they barely had 1 million viewers during the actual Golden Globes, right? But this little tiny clip, this isn't even the full clip from the Washington Post, is getting 4 million hits. And every single video that you see sort of related to this Golden Globe speech, right? 2.2 million, 3 million, 1.5 million. Seems like a good way to get some money, right? Even Joe Rogan's got 2 million hits on his thing. So why are we talking about this? Why is everybody so interested in his intro speech? Well, I think it's because it lines up with all of the things, right? That's right. Yeah. Thanks, Snafu. Don't forget about all the animals that just got burned in the fire, actually effigied and killed. I guess by some accounts it is, heading towards 1 billion dead animals in these recent fires. I think something like 500 or 600 million. I don't know how they're getting these numbers, but the loss of life and just in general destruction of the future is palpable. Right, and can we draw that comparison here to the entertainment industry? Because there seems to be the same thing. It's like they've set a wildfire on purpose in this room, right? So they hire Ricky Gervais. They know that he's going to go hard, or they just give him the entire speech scripted, right? That's again with this constant questioning. We don't know whether Ricky Gervais is acting on his own volition and doing these things on his own, or whether he was told or forced to do these things by higher powers, right? And I would say the same thing about Trump. We don't know either way whether he is acting as a puppet or just sort of blundering forward. I guess in the end it doesn't really matter, and we don't need to know, because we still need to study and research how we're going forward, and because that will help us somehow vaguely plan for what's coming next, right? So he gets in this room and just starts, really roasting everybody, bringing up the pedophile stuff, bringing up just in general how everybody hates this show and nobody is respecting, right, the celebrities the same way they are anymore. And he says this over and over again during the speech, right? I don't care anymore. Right? I'm gonna just be a total asshole and say whatever I want because I don't care anymore. This whole thing is gonna be over, and it's whatever town. Like, we are full on DGAF status. And right, myself personally, I feel like that pretty often these days because things just, it gives you that hopeless feeling. And how much of that is coming from myself and how much of that is coming from external sources, right? I would argue most of it is coming from external sources, right? Coming from, because it really hits you in your heart, right? To think about 500 million innocent animals just burning up in a fire. If that could have been avoided, or even if not, it's just that hurts to hear something like that, and it will sort of bring down your whole frequency. It'll bring down your whole energy level at its base root, and that's the whole chicken and the egg thing here with the entertainment industry. Are they just also being affected by this world collapsing, or are they active and willing participants in this rush towards the end? Right? Because it almost seems like it's too important to not plan out something like this. Something like this intense, whatever you want to call it, pre-show roast or whatever. Let's go out with a bang. And that's why I could really go like line by line through here, because everything he says is sort of cryptically pointing out what's actually gonna happen in the future, and you almost get this sense that these guys know something we don't. There really is some sort of huge disaster, something major that will make 500 million dead animals seem like whatever, right? And just the thought of that is very chilling. But I guess imagine even for a brief second that you do know what's going to happen, right? And it would be hard to not wear that on the outside and get sort of cynical, I think. If you really did know that the asteroid was coming, it's going to hit. Damn, dog. Damn. So, I don't know what happened there. I must have just been getting too into it. Maybe saying some things I wasn't supposed to say because, I don't know, the sound cut out. The sound totally cut out, and I was possibly, not guaranteeing anything, but possibly making some good points there in the last couple minutes. So, I apologize. It's just, it makes me believe in magic during the stream because literally magical things seem to go wrong with my technology. When it has to do with the show, things seem to break or just unclick themselves. Settings seem to change, or the voice just. Hold on a second. All right. Okay, now we're clean. The voice was working for like a long time, most of the show, right? And then it just clicked off. Did I? Maybe I clicked something, and then you start to feel crazy. You're like, did I press that? I didn't press that button, did I? Did I press that button? Well, it looks like some of it came through. Grant Harper is saying, very good points, bro. And I appreciate that. I appreciate those words. And so I'm going to switch back. I'm going to risk it. I'm switching back. Maybe I did press a button. Did I press a button? Did I turn my own sound off?
Why would I do that?
I need my sound for this show. Right. So those are sort of my main points here. This is just a 3-minute little collection here. You can keep clicking through his whole speech and really just do a full-on, what do they call those? Decodes on his speech. Oh, sucking toes. We don't want to look at that. We don't want to look at these toe suckers anymore. But I do appreciate, Grant Harper, your point being no fear, right? Because that's the ultimate sort of like God tier challenge of this world, it seems to be. Can you absorb all of this horrifying information, everything from pedophile rings to man-made nationwide million animal killing wildfires? Can you suck all this information down and control your fear? Know that you are still an incredibly powerful being, no matter who you are, whether you're Grant Harper or Madam Mystic Watcher or Snafu Snaps. You still get to control your own destiny. You get to do whatever you want. You get to feel whatever you want to feel. Spend time with whoever you want to spend time with. I guess unless it's like Michael Jordan or somebody. I mean, maybe there's some limits to this, but I still think you should feel that way. If you really want to talk to Michael Jordan, just find out where he lives, you set a goal and then you execute, right? All you have to do is find out where he lives, sell your possessions and move over to that area and spend a lot of time just sort of watching and waiting for Mr. Jordan to exit his house. And then I'm sure, right, it'd be pretty hard because you'll seem like a crazy person. It'd be pretty hard. But I bet there's a combination of words you could use to convince him that you guys could be friends and that he should trust you. I don't know what those combination of words are, but I still like to believe that that's true. And before we go, I just definitely wanted to show you these hexagons because it's my favorite game. Collect Collect the hex. Collect a hex. Also, why is she wearing sunglasses? That's just kind of weird. After Ricky Gervais specifically told you not to use your award winning as a platform for political speech, right? He called this out in his in his pre-show speech as well. Like, right, just get up here, get your award, and stop. Don't talk about Trump or anything else. Just don't abuse that platform. But as with anything in this world, right? It's if you know how to read the hexagons, it's pretty easy to read at this point. But very unsurprising to see them being featured in the background on this year's Golden Globe, because I think more than ever, it's important that you fit into the beehive these days. That you are just a proper, good, relaxed worker bee. That you just suck it down. Have your bug-filled Impossible Burger, and then tweet about climate change directly after, and about the carbon emissions that you saved. Because that's what a good worker bee would do, right? And so I guess now the best way to get through 2020, in their opinion, would be to just fit in. Find your hexagon and just stay there. You can relax. Settle in for the ride. What the hell? Is that my alarm? God damn it, dog. Dog. No, I'm serious. Like, I set my alarm for 7 a.m. and now it's in the other room going off at 7 p.m. Some fucking bullshit. Wait, just wait. Can you hear this? Can you hear that's pretty loud, right? I got one of those old, like, cartoon style alarm clocks where the thing hits the big bells, you know, it's like it's like going back and forth. And I totally overslept this morning because the stupid fucking, it didn't go off. Stupid fucking alarm. But, right, in the spirit of this whole show, I'm not gonna let it get me down. I'm not gonna let it get me down.
That's right. It's that time of day when the show is over. My alarm clock is telling me to get back to reality. I've got to do some things for my regular job. Like,
All right. It's been real. It's always good hanging out with you guys. I appreciate your time, your energy, the whole goddamn thing. This, honestly, just doing this show makes everything a little bit easier for me. I realize that after the show every time. I never before the show. Before the show, I'm always like, oh, God damn it, I'm so... but somehow it helps me, and I hope it helps you. Because, you know, that's I think that's the best we can do these days. Just spread the love. Spread the good vibes, and, you know, don't be too serious.
don't be too serious. Just, you know, try to enjoy something.
Okay, bye.